Hi guys, I'm Ulysses Aoki, and those are some pictures that I took with my X100f. What do you guys think? So I've used this camera approximately for about half a year, I think, but I've used Export 2s for a couple years, and I have the X-T3, so I think I have enough experience with these cameras to form an opinion on them. Point number one, the finder. So the X100f has both an EVF and an OVF. And it's interesting, a lot of people buy the camera because of the optical viewfinder and the rangefinder-ness of the camera. But most people actually end up using the EVF, which is interesting. So why does this happen? What makes a good OVF is not actually the fact that it is an OVF, but it's the entire system. It's the frame, it's the focusing, it's all of that actually. So kind of jumping to focusing. So the problem with the OVF, or the problem with that system here with the X100f, I think, is that the X100f doesn't really have a good manual focusing system. It's focused by wire, which means that it's not a mechanical focusing system manually. So actually, it's not very good for very quick manual focusing. And so what happens is when you use the OVF, you actually kind of rely on either the autofocus you rely on autofocus or you rely on zone focusing. Another point that I have, an issue that I have with using the OVF with this camera is that, well, again, going back to the focusing, there is no distance scale on the lens. So actually, there's this distance scale that pops up on the screen, but to be honest, it's not that intuitive, right? I don't see many people utilizing that. And again, because it's focused by wire, the thing is very slow. And when you're on the streets, that's not going to be working. Point number two, the JPEGs. The JPEGs, yes. Or the film simulations, right? So there's a couple bad points about this, and there's a couple good points about this. Let's start with a good point. The good point is, yes, the film simulations are nice. They're nicer than especially other JPEGs that come out of other cameras. The colors are interesting, and you have a good variety to them. The second point is that they are customizable. Yes, they're customizable. So you can change the saturation, you can change contrast, shadow, highlights. You can even mix them with different white balances. I have a friend that mixes the JPEGs with his own kind of white balance tints. And that actually kind of makes things interesting, where it's like you really can kind of mock film stocks when you start doing that. However, though, the downsides, yes. So if you're constantly using the JPEGs, your photos get a little bit repetitive because they all look similar. And then once people start getting used to what's happening to your photos, for example, I can see a photo and I can tell that, this is a classic chrome JPEG, or this is a Provia or Astia JPEG. Not that that's a bad thing, but it can get repetitive. And once people start noticing it, you really start noticing them. The last point, not really a bad point, but however, you're mostly going to be shooting raw anyways. Yes, I said it. You're going to be shooting raw anyways. So it's a good thing to be able to see good colors on the screen, so you can tell if your photo's good or not, it's a nice ad actually. However, when you're bringing it to the computer and you're looking at the files, you're looking at the raw files anyways, and you're working with the raw files anyways. There's some occasions where I had very limited time constraints for gigs, so I just shot JPEG and kind of tweaked them after a little bit, and that worked really well. So yeah, they do have their positives and they do have their utilities. but in most cases, you're gonna be shooting raw. Oh my God, I think people are gonna come at me for for this video, man. Oh man, I mean, it's it's a good camera, don't worry. But I'm debunking it for. I'm making this video to be as transparent and informative as possible. Trust me on some of these points, please. Point number 3, Fuji Colors. Fuji Colors. I have very mixed feelings about this. So, if you're shooting in JPEGs, you have the JPEG colors. Fine. If you're shooting in RAW, you get the RAW files. Obviously, they're different from the JPEGs. How good are the RAW files? In my experience, when I shoot with the X100f or the Fuji files in general, and I bring them to Lightroom, oh my God, they look terrible. I'm sorry, but they don't look good at all. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, I don't know. However, when you bring them into whatever RAW converter, actually Lightroom, they look really bad. They look desaturated, they don't have any contrast in them. I don't understand. I don't understand. However though, after I moved to Capture One, I personally feel like Capture One makes better files out of Lightroom. Or actually, the 0 point is much better than Lightroom. There's a really good video made by the Art of Photography, Ted Forbes, that talks about the difference in Capture One and Lightroom. And in this specific case with Fuji files, I feel like Capture One makes the best out of them. So what did I not like about the Fuji files? So again, in most cases, they're a little bit blotchy and they're desaturated and has lower contrast than you would expect. However, they are good in certain conditions. Yes, in certain conditions. A lot of people base their opinions on this, how the Fuji files operate in these good conditions, which is, I have my notes, situations with good lighting or high contrast situations naturally. Also, they make good colors out of lights at night, which is also high contrast situations, right? So in general, they make good colors when you have high contrast situations, and then you underexpose actually for the highlights. When you expose for highlights, hence usually that's underexposing. So what is it not good at? I think the Fuji files kind of crumble, or they don't crumble, but you don't get the higher performance on the files once you start shooting in the shadows, or once the light is a little bit flat. What happens then is, in my personal experience, I feel like you lose a lot of the color and you lose a lot of the actually the micro contrast within the files. What you have to do usually to compensate for that is you have to forcefully create contrast in post to get the colors back into the files, which is not a bad thing. And if that's possible, that's not a bad thing, but you don't get good natural colors out of it, which kind of is kind of contrary to a lot of what the opinion is on these Fuji files, in my opinion. It's hard to compare, but for example, when you deal with Leica DNGs, for example, like I use the Q and I've used the M9. When you bring those into raw conversion softwares, the 0 point is it's much cleaner. It's more saturated. There's more micro contrast, and then you don't have to forcefully add contrast into the raw files in order to get back that color detail or get back that sharpness, for example. Are we still rolling? Yes, we are. Okay. We got through that. Okay, geez. Oh my god. We got through that. Okay, cool. Point number 4, shooting experience. Personally, not bad, but not amazing. I hear people talk about, oh, it's like I love shooting with it, and then it's brought me back to, I made me love photography again, which is great. That's amazing. Fine, but for me, not really. I love photography in any case, but using this camera hasn't enhanced that experience for me. However, though, it has dedicated dials, which is rare for cameras these days, and I love it. That's amazing. I don't know why other camera makers don't do this. You have dedicated dials. Yes, it does look and feel a little bit cheap, but it's a cheap camera first. Yeah, so all in all, I think the build is great for manual shooters. If you use auto, it's fine too. But for manual shooters, yes, it's an amazing camera. Point number 5, optics and the image. Yeah, you know what? For the price point, for the sensor, for the little compact camera, they're nice files. Yeah, they're nice files. Are they sharp? I don't know if you can use that word, but I guess they're sharp. I don't know what a soft image producing camera is these days, but yeah, let's just say it's sharp. I personally, though, a drawback that I find is I personally do notice the APS-C sensor. Yeah, well, so the thing is, so it's APS-C, and then, I mean, it's a 35mm equivalent, but technically it's a 23mm on it. And then, I do kind of recognize that strange-ish distortion-like effect on it. Is it distortion? I don't know. But it's less compressed than, obviously, it's less compressed than full-frame 35. And I do notice that. And another point, you can't crop in too much with these files. Yeah, 24 megapixel, APS-C. You can crop in some, but not too much. If you don't crop, no problem. Don't worry. So, okay, my verdict. It's good for its price. Yes, it's great for its price. It's cheap, and it's hard to beat, you know? Because you know what? For candid street shooters and you want a rangefinder or something like that, you know what options that you have? You have a Leica, and you have a Fuji, basically. So, in terms of the market, it's at a good place. And then, depending on your price point, I think this is a good camera to work with. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I hope this was informative enough. Yes, I hope this was informative for you, actually, because a lot of people highly praise this camera, but there's not too many people. I think there's a good amount of serious street or candid shooters that are starting to use Fuji cameras, which is an amazing thing. But it's interestingly, there's still a lot of people that shoot film, or there's still a lot of people that shoot Leicas, or even other cameras, or GRs and things like that. And there's all a reasoning to it, right? It all depends on what kind of style you like and what kind of, if the files work for you, that's amazing. But for me, I'm very used to shooting negatives on film, and then it doesn't operate in the same way. I would say the Fuji files operate more like positive film, where you're exposing for highlights and you're trying to get good color out of it, and shooting in the shadows kind of make it all kind of mushy. Yeah, so that's my opinion on them. Hope that's informative, and yeah, but again, for the price point, I think it's a good camera, yeah. So, thanks for watching, and see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.